Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are watching a video. This is a purchasing video. I decided to make one on this machine separately. And I thought it would be kind of interesting. I'm going to talk about the machine in here in a second, but wanted to kind of pose a question. Pretend that it's 1962 and you need a sewing machine. Either you don't have one or there's one in your family, but you don't want to share it, and you really need one. Or maybe there are all sorts of reasons why people bought sewing machines. It was not unusual when people were having families, particularly, they would want to sew children's clothes. Children grow out of their clothes really quickly, and a lot of people made their own clothes back in the day. I know it sounds such a foreign concept today, but people really did. So I wanted to kind of throw a question out here for you guys, and I'll kind of tilt the camera down. You guys have seen in earlier videos, this is this blonde table, this beautiful sort of 1950s table, is very large. It's a larger than normal table, and I think I've shown this, I've demonstrated it in one of the videos. It actually, the reason you see two levels here, this is the top of the table. This piece folds back and it can even extend with a support. It has brackets. It can double in size. So, you know, you would have been faced with not only deciding if you wanted to pay for something this fancy, there were other tables, right? They had lots of different tables, different types of woods, and you had to decide how much am I going to spend on this thing. So I guess what I'm asking is, and I mentioned this before, that when you went to purchase a machine, typically what it came standard with, it might give you, you know, a few sewing feet to get you started, the common ones like zipper feet and stuff like that. But they had plenty of upsold extras such as, you know, sewing attachments and feet that were not as common but would be nice to have. But what came included was a case like this. It looks like a giant lunchbox, and these cases, you know, they were fairly well made. They were exactly what they're made of. Some of them are made of wood. Some of them are made. They have sort of this. I don't know if you'd call it contact paper or, you know, it's textured. It's designed. It may be vinyl of some sort. It's designed to look like leather, even though it's not. And of course, the case has the same two-tone look that the sewing machine did. So how much would you be willing to spend? I've made videos before talking to you guys about the cost of sewing tables. There were some sewing tables that cost more. They had a higher retail price than the sewing machine did. And I'm not kidding you. And you think, well, why would people pay such prices for this? You have to remember, you know, you could go other places and buy furniture that was at different price points. But keep in mind that if you wanted a sewing table to fit the machine that you were looking to buy, you were kind of a captive audience. You know, if you wanted it, you had to go get it from the dealer because it had the perfect cutout and everything was set up, right? And I've talked before in other videos about why people might want sewing tables. But remember that space was at a very much a premium back in this time. The average house in the United States, for example, was about 900 square feet. So if you were going to try to sell someone something as expensive as these sewing tables were, the first question is, you know, oh gosh, do we really have room for that? Because people had, you know, they had families. They were, you know, they were small homes. Most people's starter homes were fairly small by today's standards. I have a feeling they may have been made with better materials than you know, the average house today is over 2,000 square feet in the United States. However, you know, some of the materials from some of the builders are questionable, but I'm really getting out into the weeds there. My point is, had you been a customer in 1962, would you have paid extra? You wouldn't have been offered this table, although this machine will actually fit in this table because it's, by this point, the White Company had decided to go ahead and adopt the Singer 14.5 wide footprint. By footprint, I mean the space, the size or dimensions of the sewing bed. So again, you know, you would have seen, and this is the back side, by the way. You would have seen, you know, it's a nice case and it holds, You know, it's got everything it needs here with the plug. You can store a couple of things in it. You can store things underneath, but you know, that's it. Now, a couple of things to note here while we're on the back side. Some companies would put their spool pins up top, and some companies would put them down below or often on the back. It varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. One of the things I really like about these is the White Company was still making all metal machines. Okay, I'm not talking about the cover of a knob on the front or anything like that. Later, and you can see this, the machines are still heavy, they still have steel in them, but you can find them sometimes, and they had replaced this with plastic. Now think about this. Think about this metal lever pushes up against another piece of steel, and it pushes up against a spring, right? Because you can see there when I just pop that. This is the pressure bar adjustment, right? How much pressure does the foot have when it pushes down? And you can adjust it here, but whenever you lift the foot, you're lifting up against the spring. So you're lifting up against resistance, and yet later it would be plastic. If you have a machine that has a plastic lever and it works for you, that's fantastic. Don't feel bad. But be extra gentle with it, okay? Make sure that any metal parts that the plastic lever comes in contact with are lubricated, because if you don't, you're going to make that plastic piece work extra hard, and plastic degrades. It doesn't biodegrade, unfortunately, traditional plastic, but it does degrade, and it can crack, it can shatter, snap off, and then where are you? So just a little something there. You'll also notice while we're here on the back, by the early 60s, many of the sewing machine brands, though not all, had started to cover the motor. You know, traditionally you have the motor, you have the belt on the hand wheel, and the motor, there's a pulley, and the motor just hangs there with a bracket, and you can see them. And that was true of all the brands that I'm aware of, except for when Singer had a direct drive machine, you know, either the potted motor or the Slant-O-Matic machines had those beltless motors. Those are different. Those were hidden inside the body. But eventually, even the old-fashioned rear-mounted motors, they got covers. And I don't know if the cover was there to discourage people from doing maintenance, if it was to keep, you know, fingers out of there or what, I'm not sure. And of course, there's a little grill here to allow air movement. They're not hard to deal with. You know, there's 3 screws and they come right off. They're fairly easy to get off. Actually, this piece here, I believe, is part of the body. This side compartment comes off. So if I need to get to the motor, I can take the motor out if I want to. I can generally service and access a good bit of it. But anyway, this was a choice that you had to make back in 1961, 62. And were you willing to pay that much? There are people who were, because why would they do that? I mean, look at this. You've got the bed of the machine. We'll look at it from the side view. It's kind of a cool little graphic here. And if you think about it, when you're sewing, you sew across the bed, and you just have this little lip. There were people that did it. You could sew all kinds of things. It's a lot more convenient to have a nice flat surface like this big table here. And if you're sewing large objects, that's very helpful. And if you're using heavy fabric, having fabric go over the edges here, you have to pay more attention to it. Now you can do other things. You could have put this machine in 1962 on a dining table, and then you could have built a little, I'm sure people may have even done makeshift things where they could build little platforms behind the machine. Who knows? But like I said, it was a pretty heavy lifting to go up to a table because of the cost. But I'm always amazed at how many people did. How many people were willing to spend that money. And I think, you guys tell me what you think about this, I really believe that it's a reflection of how important sewing at home was. It wasn't just a nice to have, a craft, or, many of you who are sewers love sewing for all kinds of reasons. But back in these days, people enjoyed sewing for many reasons as well. It was also it was a social norm, if you will, to make your own clothing, or a lot of it, okay? Maybe not everything, but certainly many clothing items were made in the home, and you needed a machine and you needed a setup. And I'm always floored by what people were willing to pay for consumer items back in the day. And this includes everything from kitchen appliances to electronics, radios, and televisions. They weren't cheap, and neither were sewing machines. But there you go. So tell me, guys, put down in the comments, what do you think? Would you have paid, I don't have the original price right here in front of me, but would you have paid more than double the price? Not more than double, excuse me. Would you have bought the machine and instead of this paid a little bit more or as much for the cabinet than you did the machine? That's a heck of a choice, and I'm just floored that so many people did. And of course, other people did not. They very often, if you received a sewing machine as a gift, maybe it was a wedding gift or a special occasion, maybe a bride, who knows, a baby shower. It'd be a pretty fancy gift for a baby shower. But the point is, this is what you got. This is what it came with. If you wanted extras, extra feet, extra little attachments, these are cams actually in that little box, you would have to pay extra for those. Okay, so they had lots of upselling things that they could, you could pay extra for if you wanted. So for those of you who sew, I'm curious to see what you think. Some of you sew with machines in cases and you love it and it's great. Others of you really want a table, and I've noticed that half of the clients I have want a table and will wait till I find one if I don't have one for a machine of mine that they want to get. Or half of them say, I don't want a table, or I have one, I just want one in a case. So it's split 50-50 down the middle. And so let me know what you think. Do you think, why would you want anything more than just, the machine set up in here in this box? In this case, you just take the lid off, you plug her in, and away you go. Or why would you have paid so much extra for a sewing table? And if you look, you'll see this is the dimension I was talking about. That's 14.5 inches. That's the traditional Singer width. This table here, this Singer table here, is for a Slant-O-Matic, and it actually is for, I think it's 17.5. But this machine will fit into this table. It'll leave a little bit of a gap. So again, Singer tables are the most flexible that you'll ever come across. They are, more brands of machine will fit into a Singer table than any other brand. And they were copying the dimensions because they wanted the business. And they knew that when people bought tables, if they had Singer tables, it was going to be really tough to get them to buy another brand of sewing table and to get rid of the old one or find a place to put it. That was tough. And this is, you can see how many companies, including the White Company, which had always had its own dimensions, but eventually they came around to Singer's dimensions. But anyway, guys, tell me what you think about case versus table. And here is the purchasing video for the other 565 White two-tone, I can't talk today, I'm sorry, two-tone turquoise zigzag machine with the option of decorative stitches. Thanks for watching, folks.